Hi, everybody. So I just finished watching the anti-racism organizational development, and after going through the video, I definitely feel like my practicum particularly does fall under more of a multicultural kind of situation. Living in a very rural community, we don't really have a lot of diversity, so there's a lot of expectation for the severe minority group to kind of adjust to the operations of the organizational majority, is how I would phrase it. Not to say that we're an all-white organization who would like not want any diversity. One of our managers is a Hispanic person, and she brings a lot of great insight and stuff. And they do adjust like policies and procedures based on like her influence and the influences of a couple more people of color that we do have working with our organization. But um, we live in a very interesting area where it's heavy conservative Republicans, and not even just like Republican, but like really conservative. And so there's a lot of resistance to groups like Black Lives Matter, to like race organizations where there's like pushback against racism and privilege, and people are like, I'm not privileged, I lived in poverty and stuff, and not really understanding where the foundation of privilege comes in. And so the situation with our practicum is really interesting because we live in such a rural area. They're also really threatened by mental health. So we have to do a lot of community outreach to be able to get accepted into the community and get people the help that they need. Because there's also a lot of religious belief that mental illness is rooted in sin, and if you aren't sinful, you won't have mental illness. Yeah, it's a fantastic dynamic. Um, I mean that's very sarcastically. And so they feel like so a lot of times we feel like we have to like kind of play into the culture a little bit instead of directly challenging it. Like if we say no, this is bad, then the people aren't going to want to come here, and then we'll be isolated, and then mental health work won't come out. And that's really challenging because we're the only mental health agency in Franklin, Idaho, which is the county that we're in. And so, yeah, and so I definitely feel like in ways that my agency could do a lot better at that, by pushing back against racism and being an organization that could take the step further into being anti-racist entirely, and maybe giving educational seminars. We do those a lot for domestic violence and for mental illness to like kind of get acceptance into the community, but I don't see why we can't do that without like by explaining what privilege really is, what that really means, that it didn't mean that you didn't have a hard life, but it means that other people did not have advantages that you had based on skin color or systematic influences that prevented them from getting up. And so I definitely think in that way we could be doing better. Um, and so let's see. And so then the second organization that I'm going to kind of talk about is my other job at Utah State University. Is a lot more different in that area because as you get about 35 to 40 minutes away from where I work at my practicum and my other job at Utah State University in the early intervention division that I work in, they're a lot better at being completely anti-racist. They're a lot better at explaining privilege and challenging and those kinds of things that are in society and giving that education. I do think that the difference definitely is the power dynamics. They have a lot more power and influence into the society because it's a university organization. And people really, like it's a university, so I don't really necessarily think people could just completely shut it down in that regard. And they do a lot of trainings on like making sure that we're being inclusive with people and their children, LGBTQ people, avoiding racism, avoiding like stereotyping. And then we also are trained, like since I do assessments to determine delays or disabilities in children there, we are definitely taught that there are different cultural things in the assessments that we have to kind of be able to work around and manage to better adhere to somebody's cultural background and their cultural life, and especially with that child. We wouldn't want to accidentally label children who do not have challenges as having challenges because of cultural differences or ethnicity differences and race differences. And so yeah, those are basically my my thoughts. So thank you so much, guys.